Anyways, well, guys, I am excited to be here with you today. I'm excited to be joined on stage with Tammy. Now, you guys may not know Tammy. This is Tammy Hill, and Tammy is an amazing person for several reasons. All right, she's first of all amazing because one, she's a faithful follower of Jesus. So I'm super, pumped about that, Tammy. Just so you know. All right, and also she's amazing because she has been to Honduras. How many times have you been?
This last year would have been 7 years, but we did the whole Zoom thing because of COVID. So,
gosh, 7 years! Wow.
Yeah.
So 7 years she's helped out with a women's conference with our global outreach workers in Honduras, and has taught at it and led it and done all kinds of stuff for it, which is like super cool. She is a mom of 7 children. All right. First of all, let's just give a round of applause for that. That she has 7 kids. And they are all still alive, all right?
Yeah.
So that's impressive right there, 7 children. And 3 of your kids are actually in our youth ministry, and they're wonderful girls. Out of the 7, do you have a favorite child that you would... We'll talk later. We'll talk later. I don't want to make anybody angry, or anything. So, Tammy, just to get to know you a little bit better, I have a couple of would you rather questions, because you're kind of new, even though you're a mom of students in our ministry. Not everybody knows you.
Yeah.
And so this is just help us get to know you. Okay. Would you rather spend the night in a luxury hotel room? And when I say luxury, I mean like it's got the like robes that you wear, and it's got the like jacuzzi tub. It's got the bed that when you lay in, it's like a giant pillow that just like wraps around you. Okay, that kind of luxury. Or go camping with beautiful, breathtaking scenery. So mountains. Camping? Camping, hands down,
yeah,
no
hands
matter
down
what,
camping.
just like that.
Yep.
Now, why? Why camping?
I love being out in God's creation. That's where I feel Him speak to me the most, is just out there. So
I feel God speak to me in a jacuzzi tub sometimes, too, so I can understand that, yeah. All right, how many of you guys would say luxury hotel? Luxury hotel. Yeah, I may have to have a little bit of house lights so I can see. Okay, how many of you say camping? Camping. That's the dominant side right there. Okay. All right, camping. All right. Would you rather always smell like rotten eggs or always be sweaty?
Okay.
Rotten eggs or sweaty?
Okay, well, I have had COVID already, and I lost some smell. Haven't gained that all back. Don't know if I ever will. So I might not smell the rotten eggs, but everybody else would. So I'm going to go with sweaty, I think, because I could swim a lot. I don't know.
Yeah, sweaty.
I'll swim.
How many of you would choose rotten eggs? Rotten eggs? Some of you introverts, I feel like, would choose that just so you don't have to talk to people, right? They'd be like, oh, no way. You're like, yeah, that's right. I'm going to stay in the corner. Okay, anybody, sweaty? Who says sweaty? Raise your hand if you say sweaty. Sweaty. Okay, yeah, gotcha. All right. Okay, I think this is the hardest one probably right now. Would you rather own a baby monkey or a baby seal?
Okay.
A baby monkey or a baby seal?
All right. Well, I've changed a lot of diapers in my life, and I could see keeping a diaper on a monkey easier than a seal.
Than a seal?
Yeah.
Why would you put a diaper on a seal? Don't they just like swim around? I mean, you just...
Well, I have to take it other places with me. Like I go grocery shopping, the seal has to go.
You're a much better parent than I am. I'm just like, here's some food, there's some newspaper, you'll be fine. Yeah. All right. Who says baby monkey? Baby monkey? There's a few baby monkeys. Okay, who says baby seal? Oh my word. Wow. You could sell its skin for money is why you would choose the baby seal.
Or you could train your monkey tricks and earn some money.
Wow. Oh, man. This turned dark pretty quick.
Yeah, it did.
Well, anyways, Tammy, I want you to know, listen up, guys. I want you to know I'm super excited that you're here today because I'm excited about why you're here. Tammy, several months ago, attended what was called the If Gathering Conference at our church, and it was a women's conference that was a simulcast. that was actually over in the middle, and it was for 16-year-olds and up. So some of you may have gone to it.
It was awesome.
It was really good.
Yeah.
I heard it was fantastic content, great time fellowship. I reaped the benefits of that because my wife was helping to plan it, and she brought home Andy's custard because that was part of it. It was left over. It was awesome. But at that conference, Tammy felt like God was calling her to share her story with our youth ministry. And as we started to kind of talk about it, I said, now remind me of your story. And she was like, well, I wrote it in the Advent Guide devotionals that the Northside put out. Did you not read it? And I was like, no. Caught me. But I got a chance to hear your story. And I said, I would really love to have you come to our high school ministry and just share your experience. And I think it fits really well with the text and kind of what we're handling today. And so, Tammy, why don't you just go ahead and start and share a little bit about life growing up. Also share about your faith growing up and kind of where it started and where it kind of led to.
Yeah, I grew up in Tucson, Arizona, into a Christian home. My dad was a minister, and my mom and him and my aunt and uncle would lead worship in our church. However, when I was 2 years old, my dad decided to leave. So it was my older sister and I and my mom. I thought it was my fault. I dreamed it or something, but it was very significant that it was my fault. And I really felt like that propelled me towards always wanting to be perfect, because I thought if I wasn't perfect, the people that I loved would leave. And so then through that, the couple years after that, my mom was single. We got broken into 7 times during that, interrupted them one night coming back from church and opened the door, and they shut the door back on us, and that was really scary. So I just was very, very fearful of death, how I would die, just bad things happening and that kind of stuff. My mom remarried when I was 5, and he seemed like a great guy, really active in his church, but that was an abusive situation. I think I started to feel that I had to do what was expected of me and not rock the boat, because it would affect the rest of my family. However, growing up in a Christian home, I loved God. I had asked him into my heart when I was 7 when I was baptized. However, with all of this, I really feel like it kept me from feeling that God, God's nearness. He really just felt far off. I felt like that I had to, be good enough, because if I wasn't good enough, he wouldn't use me or want to bless my life.
Yeah, you probably, after being in an abusive situation with family, but also having your dad leave when you were very young, and then thinking it was your own fault when it wasn't. You know now that it wasn't your fault for this, but there's that sense of expectation that you probably put on yourself that I have to be perfect or else people will leave. Or things will happen in my family. And, that sounds like it kind of came through even in your relationship with God, where you felt like God was there and you believed in him. I mean, you were a Christian, a follower of Jesus, but at the same time, it was just kind of this idea, or God felt very distant from you. There wasn't necessarily a personal relationship, between the two of you.
Right. I didn't put myself out there for people because of that fear of failure, rejection. And so I feel like that was how I approached God too. Just really not putting myself out there to draw close, and because I could fail.
I wonder, while you guys may not have the same experience as Tammy, I just kind of wonder if maybe some of you have felt that way before, that God is distant and maybe not really involved in your life, where you just don't feel his presence or recognize his presence or even kind of know his presence. It's kind of like that feeling of, if you've ever been invited to a friend's birthday party and they're like, you have to be there. And you're like, okay, I'll have to be there. And so you show up, and that friend that you had to be there for doesn't even talk to you. You're just like hanging out with their crazy uncle or something like that because, they're busy talking to everybody else. And you're just thinking like, if I just left right now, I doubt anyone would even know. How many of you guys, that's the kind of feeling I'm talking about. How many of you guys have ever had that feeling before? like you just don't matter. You feel like you don't matter. Yeah, I think we've all been in that place in one time or another. And maybe for you, that feeling is what comes when you think of God. Like, you start to question, God, do I really matter to you? Like, do I really matter? Do I have value to you? Because it just seems like in this relationship that I have with you, I believe in you, but you just seem very distant. And maybe for you, it's partially because of your circumstances. Like, some of you may be going through a really hard time. Like, maybe your parents are going through a divorce right now. Maybe someone you love has passed away. Maybe it's just really tough financially on your family right now. There's things that you want to do that you can't do. And you pray, you ask God for help. You say, God, please, I need help in this. I need rescuing. I need saving. And in those moments when God doesn't answer or you don't feel his presence, it's very easy for us to kind of drift into this thinking of, God, do I even really matter to you? And I think that's kind of where you were kind of finding yourself a little bit, Tammy.
Yeah.
And talk about how that changed. Because it changed in a pretty phenomenal, miraculous way for you.
Yeah. Growing up, my grandma and grandpa were just a rock of faith in my life. Starting at age 12, I would go back to Illinois and spend the summers with them. But the summer of 1992, that gives me some age there, I was a month before my 17th birthday, just finished my junior year, going in to see my senior year. And my cousin and I were going to play a prank on my other cousin, Seth, who had just got his car, was going to be driving his car to work for the first time the next day. So I thought this brilliant idea was to get a load of toilet paper and just wrap up, every mirror, every windshield wiper, just go all out, wrap the whole thing up. So
that sounds like a pretty good idea, right?
Yeah.
Like, how many of you guys would be down for something like that? I'm just making mental notes in case something happens, all right? Yeah.
So anyway, with our toilet paper, we went out to this farm, backed up behind the barn, and snuck around, and the farm dog started barking. And so Seth let the dog out, and then the dog just barked and went back in, and then the dog barked again, so he let him out again. This happened 3 times. So Seth finally decided he's going to grab his keys and come out to his car, see what's up. And so we just bolted. We bolted to the truck, jumped in, and went down the road. It had rained earlier that day, so the roads were a little slick. And so up ahead, there was a 90-degree turn in the road that we took, and my cousin lost control of the truck. It went into the ditch on the left side of the road, hit one of those big culverts that the water goes through, and it flipped the truck. It popped my door open, actually, and then I fell out, landed on my head and my shoulder, and then it flipped 2 more times, and then he fell out on the last flip.
And I think we even have like a couple pictures of the truck. Kind of the damage that.
Yeah, it has a roll bar, which probably saved us some too.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
Anyway, wear your seatbelts. But I was actually saved that I didn't wear my seatbelt because he was not wearing his, and he probably would have smashed me. But anyway. So I had some cousins, because in Illinois you're related to everybody, apparently, good or bad. So some cousins frogging in the ditch down the road, they heard it, and they came up and just stayed with my cousin and I. My cousin, who we were trying to TP the car, he had followed us down the road, saw what happened, went back to the house to tell his mom to call 911, because this is before cell phones, guys. And so he came back and blocked the road so that nobody would run into us. So we were taken to a small local hospital, Vandalia, Illinois. They decided I'd need a trauma unit, so they were going to fly me to St. Louis. I read a couple years later that they had resuscitated me from the hospital to the helicopter, which I don't think any of my family had been told. It was interesting to read a couple years later. But there in St. Louis, I went into a coma. And
you had some pretty major injuries.
Yeah.
Because you talked about your head injury was kind of cracked open all the way across your...
Yeah, it went through my nose, cracked my skull, through my nose, through my inner ear, all the way to the back. I had just spinal fluid just everything
And you had
coming out.
you said your
Yeah,
clavicle was
my clavicle split and came out my shoulder.
Yeah.
So, and then, okay, when you're in a major accident, they don't put you together like Humpty Dumpty. They just put bones back in and then just hope for the best. I don't know. Anyway.
That's pretty major trauma, guys. I
Yeah.
mean, that's big deal stuff, and that's why
Yeah.
they're flying her to the hospital. And then you went into a coma.
Yeah. And then, I don't remember that. I mean, I came out of the coma. I had complete amnesia coming out of the coma. But at the bottom of my bed on the right side Jesus was sitting there. And, I knew who he was. And it didn't seem surprising that he was there at all. I don't know why. Looking back on that now, I'd be shocked to see him today, I'm sure. But there was no shock. It was just natural that he was there. My mom, who I didn't know was my mom at the time, she came over to sit down beside me, and I was like, no. And she's like, what? And I'm like, well, Jesus is sitting there. You're going to sit on him. And so she was just always really careful to ask, okay, is he sitting here? Is he sitting here? Yeah. And so throughout my stay, he just went everywhere with me, always at my right side. If I went to speech therapy, the MRIs that I was getting, it seemed like every day. Physical therapy, wherever I went, he went too. Until the day before the day I was supposed to be released, I was supposed to go get an MRI, and I just kind of remembered not seeing him there. And I thought, well, that's strange. And then I got back to the room, and I'm like, hey, where were you? And he's like, oh, I was there. And so later on that night, the nurse had readied me for bed, dimmed the lights, and went out. And he came up and he sat up close to my side, and he said, you've been able to see me all this time because you needed to see my strength to survive. But tomorrow when you wake up, you won't be able to see me. But I'm still going to be there like I always have been and always will be, right by your side. And you can talk to me the same way we have been. And he said, if you were to ask me any question, what would it be? And I said, well, why did you choose to keep me alive? Because honestly, guys, I was completely happy to be in his presence. I was fine. And he said, because you have a job to do and you will not die until it's done. And then I drifted to sleep. And when I woke up the next morning, I didn't see him. But I knew he was there. It was that strong, just peace and knowing that he was there. So with the amnesia, I forgot the fearful girl, the one who always aimed for perfection. I became bold, a leader in my youth group, spoke to groups, and just, to experience God in a different way was what changed my life.
Yeah, and we've talked privately even more about how your encounter with Jesus radically changed your life, not only in the sense of giving you strength to live and giving you purpose on this earth, but also all of a sudden you went from being fearful, afraid to engage with people, concerned about being perfect and or else people would leave, to all of a sudden now you're boldly speaking about Jesus, helping other people through sharing your story. You're saying, I know that this is real because I've seen Jesus. He has given me his presence, and I know what that's like. And that transformation from who you were to who you became just validated this message that I really encountered Jesus. And you even said earlier that, because I said, sometimes when I hear stories of faith that are just miraculous, my first reaction, my faithful reaction, is to go, wow, that is awesome. That's amazing that God did that for you. My skeptical, doubting reaction is like, what? I don't know if anybody feels that same way, but it's a mix of both for me, sometimes. And I have to remind myself that God shows up in incredible ways. And I asked Tammy, I said, did people have mixed reactions, even as you share your story now? And you had mentioned that because of that change in your life, there weren't very many people that actually doubted that you saw Jesus, that you were there with Jesus because of how he changed you.
Yeah, it was such a drastic transformation to know who I was then. So it was really easy to tell my story then. The further I get from that, and that, you all are not, weren't a part of really creation yet. You weren't born yet. But to share it with new people, yeah, there is that anxiety. Satan tries to sneak in that fear to keep me from to share it because he doesn't want people to hear it. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, and even now, you still got some lingering effects from the accident, but definitely you would say that this was a pivotal moment in your faith, where you moved from God being distant to I know that God cares about me and I have a purpose in this world.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that really connects with just our text on Mary this week. There was this Mary Magdalene in the story who came to. She was sitting at the tomb, and after Jesus had resurrected, and she's like, "Where's his body?" And I think just Jesus making himself real to her was huge.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up because I do want to share another story about the resurrected Jesus appearing to another woman. We're in this series right now called Afterlife, and the whole point behind the series is that Jesus is alive. And because Jesus is alive, that has real implications for our life and our faith. And so when I heard Tammy's story, I said, I want you to share this in this series because I want students to realize that because Jesus is alive, that he impacts our life now. But I also want to share this other story from Scripture. It's from Mary Magdalene. There are a lot of Marys in the Bible, and I guess it was a popular name. I don't know. Maybe people liked the name Mary back then. But there's actually several different Marys. There's Mary, the mother of Jesus. When Jesus was on the cross, there's actually two Marys there. But the Mary that I want us to talk about and kind of parallel with Tammy's story is Mary Magdalene. Now, Mary Magdalene, we don't know a ton about. She is mentioned actually quite frequently in the Bible. We know that she was a follower of Jesus, that she traveled with Jesus. We know that she financially supported Jesus' ministry. The Gospel writer John also mentions that Mary had 7 demons driven out of her. So think about that. Like 7 demons, like boom, gone, out of you. And so because Mary had these kind of demons and stuff, I would say that she probably understood what it was like to be isolated and alone because she would not have been accepted by her culture or in society at all. And so she probably was even asking the question, do I really matter? And so here's why we're talking about Mary today. All 4 Gospels or biographies of Jesus record Mary Magdalene was there when Jesus was put on the cross. 3 of the 4 say that she was there when Jesus was buried. And all 4 say that she was the first to see Jesus resurrected. And so let me kind of set up for you what was happening in this passage. The Gospel of John records that while it was still dark, Mary got up, she went to the tomb. But when she got there, they had rolled the stone away. It was gone. And there wasn't a body there. Now, Mary didn't immediately think, oh, he's risen, he's alive. It's like she didn't start celebrating. She started weeping because she felt like the body's gone. Someone stole him. Someone stole my Lord. And so what happens is she runs straight to Peter and to another disciple. She tells them. They run to the tomb. Sure enough, Mary was right. The stone's gone. The body's gone. All that's there was Jesus' grave clothes. The other disciples, they actually left to go tell the others, but Mary stayed where she was, right by the tomb. And she had the sadness of losing a friend, and now there's the added trauma of, I don't know where the body even is. And this is what John writes in our passage today. He says this, and you can read it on the screen. It says, now Mary stood outside the tomb crying. As she wept, she bent over to look in the tomb and saw the 2 angels in white seated where Jesus' body had been, one at the head and the other at the foot. They asked her, woman, why are you crying? They have taken my Lord away, she said, and I don't know where they've put him. At this, she turned around and saw Jesus standing there, but she did not realize it was Jesus. He asked her, woman, why are you crying? What is it you're looking for? Thinking he was the gardener, she said, sir, if you have carried him away, tell me where you've put him, and I will get him. And Jesus said to her, Mary. And then all of a sudden that light bulb went on. She turned toward him and cried out in Aramaic, Rabboni, which means teacher. And Jesus said, "Don't hold on to me, for I have not yet ascended to the Father. Go instead to my brothers and tell them, I am ascending to my Father and your Father, to my God and your God." Mary Magdalene went to the disciples with the news, "I have seen the Lord," and she told them that he had said these things to her. What a great story. On the day that Jesus defeats sin, death, and Satan, he rises from the dead, and the very first person that he chooses to show himself to is this lady, Mary Magdalene. Now, guys, this is one of the reasons why I actually believe the resurrection happened, because if you were to make this story up, you would not use a woman as a witness of truth in this culture. In fact, women were not seen as reliable witnesses. They could not testify. Their word was not trusted over a man's word in this particular culture. And over again, you see Jesus elevating the status of women. He appears to Mary to say, I recognize that you were created in the image of God, and you are not only worthy or worth this message, but I want to reveal myself to you. And so these are two stories. You know, your story, Tammy, of seeing the resurrected Jesus as part of your life and giving you strength and purpose, but also Mary seeing the resurrected Jesus and to know that she mattered to him. And so here's what we want you guys to know and take away. Because of the resurrection, here's what I want you to know. You matter to God.
Yes, and because you matter to God, you have great value. I mean, you take this $20 bill. All right. Who wants $20?
Those guys stand right away, right there. Like,
who wants $20? All right. Okay. Who still wants it? Okay. All right. All right. Now, I live on a farm, so I'm not sure what my boots have been on.
Yeah, that could have all kinds of germs, disease.
All right. Who still wants it? All right.
Still wants it? Oh. Hey, don't. There you go. You got it. Yeah.
All right. No matter how crushed, how bruised, how dirty, whatever, anything that you've done or experienced, anything that's been done to you, does not decrease your value. You are valuable to God, and that's really what we want you to just leave here knowing your value. Yeah. It doesn't change.
So just like that $20 bill, no matter what happens to it, it's still valuable to you. It still holds value because it's worth that to you. God sees your life, and no matter how broken, bruised, no matter what's happened to you or what you've done, God says you still have value to me. Why? Because I created you. And so because of the resurrection, we know that you have value to God. But also because of the resurrection, you matter to God. Because you matter to God, you are not alone. Guys, get this. You're not alone. There are times when I'm sure you're in your room and you're probably on your phone and you feel like no one cares about you, and you start to wonder, would anyone ever notice even if I'm gone? And the answer is yes. We would notice. Not only the church, but God notices you, and he is with you. Even in your pain, in your loneliness, in your struggles, God is there. And you don't have to be perfect to all of a sudden have this relationship with God. You just have to cry out to him and say, Jesus, I need you. And so you are not alone in this.
Right. And you matter. Because of that, you have a job to do. I love Mary's story because, Jesus says, go and tell my brothers. It's significant that he gave her that job, that the resurrection story started with her. And I was able to, know that I have a job to do. And years later, I was thinking about this, and I was like, that's such a simple answer. And I really feel it's like for all of us. I know it's for all of us. And so you leaving here knowing that you have a job to do. It's true, and he's right beside you, and he's going to give you everything you need. I was thinking about it this morning and just picturing a river of life. God didn't call you to be a Dead Sea sitting there. The river of life is flowing from his throne. And, when a river forges its way through, there are storms that come that knock down trees and debris that try to stop its flow. But it doesn't stop. It forges its way through. It's creative. There's, it doesn't know what's around the next bend or what's ahead, but it keeps on going. It keeps on going. And there was a statement said at the IF conference. It said, don't put a period when God's not done writing the story. I love that. And also, too, just there's a scripture that there's a scripture that I came across the fall after my accident, and I was so excited to find it. It's actually Paul writing a quote that King David wrote in Psalm 16, and it says, I saw the Lord always before me, because he is at my right hand, I will not be shaken. Therefore my heart is glad and my tongue rejoices. My body also will live in hope, because you will not abandon me to the grave, nor will you let your Holy One see decay. You have made known to me the paths of life, and you will fill me with joy in your presence. And I just love that. Just like the river of life, it just continues on. It continues on. And you just know we have the presence of God with us.
Yeah, it's so important, because without the presence of God, I can see how we would give in to despair. I can see how we give in to suffering. I can see how we get frustrated with life and want to give up. But with the presence of God, because of the resurrection of Jesus, we can know that we matter, that we have value, that God's not done with us, that he has a mission for us in this world. And I think that's a message that even, your story is pretty miraculous. And I wouldn't say that Jesus appears to everyone, because I've never had an experience like that personally. But I would say the message that he gave you is in line with what Scripture says, and it's in line with the purpose that he calls us to in this world. And that same purpose is true for you guys too, that you have a purpose. And so I just want to ask you, before we go to our community groups, what if you actually believed that you mattered to God? Like, there's a difference between having the head knowledge and actually having the heart knowledge of knowing that God is with me. How would it change your life? And how would it change the way you even treat other people to realize that they matter to God too? So we're going to give you some time in your community groups to talk about this. Before I dismiss you, though, I want to say this, that Jesus is real. And if you don't know him as your Lord and Savior, I want you to come and talk to us about that, Tammy or me or your leaders, because we want to help you take steps to realize that Jesus wants to be involved in your life. And so we love you guys. You are dismissed to your community groups now to talk a little bit more and unpack some of the things that we had talked about.